welcome back to another video of this series. I am Rabinshu Sharma, Assistant Professor in Department of Journalism and Mass Communication of BBD University, Lucknow. I will teach you in this video about the radio interviews. What are the types of interview? What is radio interview? What are the words that we have to use in interview? And basically, before taking any interview, what kind of research or what kind of study that you need to do to conduct a proper interview, what types of questions that you have to ask, what are the questions that you don't have to ask, and after the interview how you have to manipulate those questions and how you have to post edit and everything. I'm going to teach you in this video. So let's start with this presentation. First of all, I'll start with this slide interview. Okay, so basically, radio interview is very important because in this interview, one asks the other persons the various things about the life or various things about his profession, things about the job, and like various things as per the need of the interview or as per the scene. Okay, so interview form it is a form of a presentation in which one person interviews one or more than one person. Yeah, in that can be a two-person, that can be a three-person. Many time it happens for the movie, like in movies interview, when movie is going to get launched in the pre-promotion, there are two to three people as the interviewee, and interviewer asks the questions to them. So there can be one person who takes interview, and can be one or more person who gives the interview. An interviewer conducts a program with the help of questions. Yeah, questions is very important. It's very necessary to take the interview because you do not have the content to say all the time. See, you are going to ask the experience about the other person. You're going to take the interview, so you need to know the various things about that interviewee, and the content or the experience or the ideas that the interviewee is sharing to the interviewer, that is somewhere your audience is also getting that things. Okay, so the interviewer conducts the program with the help of questions. You'll ask the questions, and when they will give the answer, definitely your audience, your listeners are going to get the benefit of that. The major component here is the question an interviewer asks. Okay. Next is aspect. Okay. There are four aspects: facts, feelings, motives, opinion. Okay. In every interview, you'll see the major four things. In some interviews, it can be based on the facts. In some interviews, it can be based on the feelings. Some interview can be based on the motives, and in some interview, it could be based on the opinions. These four aspects are suited to any situation. Every story has a fact. Let's say a crime story, or let's say it's a political story, or let's say it's an emotional story. Every story has some facts that are true. That story is felt and experienced by the person and society in its own way. Every person has his her own motives for the story. As per the demand, as per the need, every person has his own motives for the story. And these facts, feelings, and motives add up to form own opinion about the subject matter. Generally, it happens, and then the facts and feelings and the motives add up to form own opinion about the subject, and the audience see the interview in his own way of point of view. See the basic approach: an interview is not a debate between two people, between two topics. Interview is like simply you can say it's a question answer, but generally it happens like many times in the panel discussion of the like in the news channels daily evening. You can see it's generally it yeah it happens like a debate, but interviewer and interviewee, this format does not have the debate. It's just like one party is asking the question and the other party is giving the answers. An interview does not determine win or loss. It's not a game that you have to defeat the other person. You have taken you are speaking against the motion, or you're in the favor of the topic, and you're just debating the other person. It's not a game. It's a healthy conversation, you can say. An interviewer merely is representing the questions of audience and their curiosities. It generally happens. Audiences have the curiosity, and the interviewer is asking the question to interview, and he or she is trying to answer those questions, and somewhere they are able to cure their curiosities. Since the interviewer is a representative of the audience, he/she should avoid the use of me during the interview, because he is just like the moderator. She is just acting like a bridge between the audience and the that celebrity or the interviewee. So he should not include his own points, and he should not include the words like I want to know, like audience want to know. He should use the words like audience want to know. And an interviewer should not be aggressive, however challenging the situation is. He should not be like very anger, and he should not annoy the other person, asking the questions back to back and cross questioning like things like that. Some interviews might just be for entertainment, like some comedy night, like you can say comedy night type of format. That is like just for the entertainment, just for the fun, like with the celebrities, where there is no motive or goal for an interview. It's just like healthy or the casual conversation, you can say. Two people are talking to each other just for the fun, and they can crack the jokes also. They can crack they can say the double meaning words also, like something like. In that case, the interviewer should not do challenging questions to them. It's a casual and unhealthy, like healthy conversation. So they can just ask the things, and they can have a casual approach to the interview. Types of this thing: interview, explanatory interview, analytical interview, and emotional interview. So we can see there are three types of interview: explanatory interview, analytical interview, and emotional interview. In If you talk about the explanatory interview, facts, feelings, motives, and opinions might be of general interest to the people, because people are listening to your radio, and if they have the interest, and if the content is interesting, and if that falls to their domain of interest, they will definitely tune to that radio station. They will not switch that channel. So facts, feelings, motives, and opinions might be of general interest to the public, to the people. The interview taken for the public interest is called exploratory interview, because when you're taking the interview for the public, so you need to have the public interest, so that you can glue the link between your listeners and your channel. This gives us information about the facts and the figures. Coming to the analytical interview, when the facts, feelings, motives, and also opinion are established. Facts, feelings, motives, and opinion, all four things are established. There might be some questions raised in the public level. In this case, an analytical interview is conducted. In this, the interviewee is directly responsible for the consequences that occurs due to interview. Many times it happens that interviewee says the content which goes viral, and that could create some dispute or chaos in the society. So interviewee is directly responsible for the consequences that occur during the interview. In that case, in analytical, he or she should be very much alert while giving the interview. So, facts, feeling, emotions, and opinions, these four things are generally established in the analytical interview. Coming to the emotional interview, uh, an incident sometimes create a deep impression in a person, and the subject matter of that incident drives his emotions. In this case, The subject matter of an interview becomes emotional. For example, an interview with victims of some crisis. An interview with victims of some crisis. Okay, somebody is suffering from like some problem, like if he or she is victim of something, and you're taking the interview. Okay, in this type of interview, his or her experience and opinions are discussed, and the interviewer does not cross checks the facts given by the interview. For example, I would like to discuss about the one recent interview that's very viral, famous interview of the Barkha Dutt. She took interview of a lady who was there in the railway station of the Mumbai railway station during the lockdown 2.0 or 3.0, and she was there in the railway station, and nobody was there to look after her. One of his son was in Delhi and another son was in Mumbai, and he left him to the railway station, and she did not know how to go, and she do not know about the trains which were available, which will take her to her destination. She do not have a lot of more money, and food also she do not have. So this was something emotional. She cried, and she told about her deep pain that she had about his son who did wrong with her. And so this was some emotional content, emotional touch that the interviewer tried to connect to the audience with the interview's experiences. So this is something like she is victim, and in crisis she took interview. In this type of interview, experience and opinions are discussed, nothing else. Okay, components of this interview: interviewer, interviewee, aim and context, and the question. Okay, these are the four components of the interview. Generally, it happens like, first of all, the party who is taking the interview, that is interviewer, the guest or the person who is going to answer the questions, that is interviewee. Next, aim and context. Why you are taking that interview? What is the motto? Does this interview increase your TRP, or does that interview is the need of the hour, or that is in trend? That's why you are taking the interview. That's the most important component of the interview, because nobody is going to take interview of the unnecessary to the unnecessary person without any reason, without anything. Everything happens just for the reason. Okay. The fourth component of the interview is questions. The questions is the most important part of the component of the interview, because this questions creates the interest in the audience, because there are few questions that you are asking to the person. Those questions are in the mind of the people and the listeners, like they want to know about the other person, but they are not able to directly approach to that person, and they are asking the questions to them. So you are working as a bridge between the listeners and the interviewee, and you are asking those questions by doing the research about that person, by doing your proper homework, knowing about the facts and the figure, and asking the things about that in that interview. So questions plays a very important role, and that comes after the proper research about the interviewee. Okay, the control of an interview. Okay, the control of an interview is completely in the hands of the interviewer. The person, the expert, the person who is taking the interview, if he or she thinks that interview is going very vague, he or she can cut down. If he or she is thinking that interview needs some twist in the story, so he or she can ask for some change. He can ask, crack some jokes. He can do anything. So entire whole soul control is in the hands of the interviewer. An interview is considered successful when an interviewer is able to fulfill the motive of the interview in a simple and efficient manner. See, you don't have to be very much advanced, you don't have to be very much hard. Just go with the flow, with the simple and the efficient manner. If you are able to achieve those things, then only this interview will be called as a perfect interview. It's not necessary that you have to do a debate. It's not like a win and lose situation. You just have to go with the flow, just like a normal chit chat that you have to in a proper formal way. Coming to the first component of the interview, that is interviewer. An interviewee is the central character in an interview. A question to the interview must not be a question to the interviewee must not be relevant to his or her field. Okay, must be relevant. Sorry, a question to the interviewee must be relevant to his field. If the public does not have enough trust in the interviewee, then the words he speaks will be considered as a propaganda, which will kill the main agenda of the interview. This generally happens. If you talk about any paid programs and the paid interviews, this thing is very much trending in India. Generally, when it happens that people who particularly pay certain amount to the news channels or the radio channels for the propaganda. Their ultimate motto is propaganda, and they talk about their own personal interest rather than they talk about the public interest. So public does not have the enough trust in the interviewee, and then the words what they are saying that it will be considered as propaganda, which will kill the main agenda of the interview. So interviewee is the central character in the interview. So interviewee is a person who is giving the interview. Coming to the next, aim and context in the interview in an interview, and interviewee should not start in an interview and interviewee should not start speaking in a free manner, but rather be steered by the interviewer. And to steer this story, there has to be definite aim. Every interview has certain context, and the interviewer should understand the context and try to reach to the aim. Okay, this the aim, you have to start with your aim and you have to end your interview with the aim. Two parties, interviewer and interviewee, they should not start speaking in a free manner as if they are sitting in the drawing room, in the bedroom of the personal like friends to sitting and chit chatting. That should not be. Even if they are friends, but they have to talk in a formal way, and they have to steer. They have to took the interview straight to the point and to the aim, to the context. They have definite aim before interview, but many time it happens that interview starts with the aim, but that goes into some another angle on from the another direction. So every interview has a certain context, and an interviewer should understand about the context. Coming to the fourth component, question to tell a story through an interview. Questions is the must. Questions, like I said initially, questions come by the research. So questions is everything. The interview starts with the question, interview ends with the questions, and in between there are a few elements that you use. An interviewer investigates the elements of the story with the help of the question. I said research investigation that creates the questions about the story baseline. The sequence of the question determines the sequence of the story. It's not like you can ask the about the future plans. The first question, okay, you have to ask about the initial. You have to introduce with the topic because your listeners they are listening to the program. So after the introduction, you have initial questions have to be very much light, and so that you can your audience could get themselves connected with the concept topic, and the interviewer interviewee know about the designation post of the interview or interviewee, from where they are coming, what they do. So these are the various things. The sequence of the questions determines the questions about the story. Therefore relevant questions and their sequences are extremely important for an interview. Relevancy is very important. Things should be very much relevant about the questions, and they should be in a proper sequence from A to Z. Now, coming to the structure of the interview, first standard opening, like opening the question. Second, introduction of the interviewee and the topic. Third, question and answer. Then fourth, winding up, and fifth, start standard closing. Okay, so like standard, to talk about the standard opening is like I'm introducing the program. Hello and welcome to my dear friends. I'm Rabinshu Sharma. Today we have in our studio Mr. XYZ. So we'll be discussing a lot of things about his personal life or about the work about this company. So initially I'll be introducing myself and my guest and the topic on which we are going to discuss today about that topic. So that's the standard opening. Okay, and you are listening to blah 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 like this. So after that introduction of the interviewee and their topic that I said, then question and answer. Question and answer, like this will be a like a source, or this will be a begin like in middle structure of the entire interview, question and answer. And when you feel like your time is getting up and you need to wind up all those things, so try to repeat the ideas, the sentences and words, and try to do the mirror image technique. That's like repeating the last sentence of the interviewee and you are about to close the interview. Then standard closing, like standard closing, you can say, thank you so much, Mr. XYZ, for coming to the studio, and I hope our listeners have got a lot of new things and insights about the particular topic, about the new things. So stay tuned with us, and thank you for joining us. Like something you can say anything like at the end of the interview, and understand that will be something standard closing. An interview is open for formal address. An interview is open for formal address to the in audience. Introductory tune, name of the program, time, play, and program aired. So in introduction, what I said, like introducing standard opening, you can tell about the you can also tell about the program name, day, time, and the other thing. Then after opening, there has to be a proper introduction of the topic. As I said, the second step, there has to be a proper topic explanation of the interview and inter-interview. The agenda of the interview must be made clear during the introduction. Because if you are not able to clear your agenda initially with the your introduction, second step, the audience will automatically they switch or they change the radio station and they'll switch to some other radio station, because if the agenda is not of their interest, nobody's going to listen that interview, nobody's going to waste his or her own time in that. The interviewer should make sure that he/she has made the aim and context of the interview clear to the audience. See, everything that is going in the radio industry is just for the audience. If audience is not getting the proper things about the interview, then we are doing things for the audience. Then it will be worthless, because you're doing each and everything just for the audience. So we have to make this thing very much clear. The interview should, like interviewer, like I am the interviewer, then I should make sure that I have made the aim and context of the interview clear to the audience. Like third, this is the main part of the interview, as I already said just now. During questions and the answer, interviewer should ask questions and accordingly to the nature of the interviewee topic. Many time it happens, a person is coming from the music industry, people start talking about the, what is the science formula. No, it's not. You have to stick to the topic, like the person who is coming from the particular domain, so you can ask the things about the particular domain. If he or she is saying about the different beat things, and you can you can discuss but not divert the entire topic of the interview in that direction. Okay, during the questions and the answer, the interviewer should question ask question according to the nature of the interview topic, facts, etc. A good interview is always lively, active, and do not dull and boring. Okay, and not dull and boring at all. There must be a smooth flow in order of questions. Smooth flow is very much required for the smooth functioning of the interview. Then, after the question and the answer session, the program has to be wrapped up. While winding up the program, an interviewer should not give conclusion. Conclusion, that in the end point you'll see in the fifth step, should not give conclusion regarding the topic of the interview. While ending the question and the answer session using the mirror technique, The final question should be started with the at last or finally, hinting the audience that the interview has to come an end, and now you have to prepare yourself about the some other program that is going to be on it. So you just have to hint your audience, and you just have to hint the interviewee also, that comes in now, come in the relaxed position like little bit, and you can take a little bit small breathe, deep breathing, like it's the last question, and you can have a little bit smile after answering this question, like something. So while ending the question and the answer session, the final question should be started with the at last or finally, hinting the audience. After the interview, an interviewee should be allowed to say something without binding him in any question. After concluding, before concluding, we'll ask question. That will not be a proper way. Okay, so he she should be allowed to say something without any binding in the question, which will be the conclusion of the interview, or he or she is giving some society to the message, or the interviewee is saying, giving a particular message to the society at last. Like the whole structure of the interview should be in such a way that it opens floor for further discussion and not conclude it. Okay, so things should go on, and they go on. So after winding up this interview, it's time to say goodbye to the audience. A standard closing is done after asking for suggestion about the program, informing about the next interview session, and asking the formal permission to be a part of from the audience. It is followed by closing tune or the signature tune of the particular radio station. Coming to the interviewee as source, as a representative, and as a symbol. So we'll start with the as source. If you see the interviewee, person who has visited to your place to give or share experience, he is as a source because he's discussing a lot of new things. He is as a representative of the particular organization. If you're calling some director of the environment company, so he is as a representative of the particular organization, or as a symbol. He could be inspiring. He could be like anything. So if we will discuss with the other source, your interviewee could be could work as a source, someone who has important, who someone who has information about something, is a source. Someone who is experienced and has a unique viewpoint about something, again it's source. Someone who is the cause of an incident, again it's a source. As a representative, someone who is a representative of a people in political scenario, maybe some neta or mantri ji is coming to the studio and the giving the interview. He is representative of the particular political party. Someone who is a public figure, someone who is from religious institution, someone who is a business tycoon, someone who could be from the indigenous group. So representative from any group, any religious, any business, any tycoon, any Tata Birla money, anyone could come there. As a symbol, if you talk about as a symbol, some Panditji, Netaji, or some social workers are coming over there. So some who is a symbolic of religion, he is a symbol. Someone who is a symbol of peace and prosperity. People like Mother Teresa, like who are coming to the interview, they are the peace. They are the symbol of the peace and prosperity. So it's like people like them. Someone who is a symbol of social injustice. Again, it's a symbol. Now I'll talk about the nature of an interviewee. Interviewee differs according to the nature. Someone might be calm and cool, and while some might be aggressive. He might not have heard about the respective radio station or program. An interview must prepare questions according to the nature of the interview by understanding about them beforehand. He could ask, he could see about his Facebook profile, he could check the social media platforms of the interviewee, and interviewer can identify about the nature of the interview. Many times it happens in the TV, basically in TV interviews, debates, panel discussion. The people from the different political party, they start fighting with each other. They start beating each other, and they start using abusive words. So the interviewer must know about the nature of the interview. How what is the mindset of the interviewee? Is he cool, or is he has a hot blood? Like he's very aggressive, and he start fighting with the small words. So he or she should be interviewer should know about the interview experience. Mind. Nature of an interviewee again might be expert in specific field, might be extremely talkative, might be shy, modest, might be cunning, smart, might be expert in twisting facts and situation. Generally in our country, the political party leaders, they are very much expert in twisting facts and twisting situations. It might be emotional, might be logical, might be aggressive, might be technical terms and the jargons a lot. Shashi Tharoor. Okay. Preparing for an interview, before doing any interview, there has to be a proper research regarding the topic of the interview. As I have already discussed, you have to do a proper research about the topic of the interview and the interviewee. You have to know about the both the things, topic and the person who is coming to share the answers, share the experience. You should know about him also or her also. If there is no preparation for it, then the interview will look amateur, and the audience will quickly able to identify that it's all happened in the quick time. So the proper work is missing. So audience can easily judge because audience is very clever and they have very much listener experience was there into this. This might even create race in question against the interviewer, and he could lose the job as an RJ. Preparing for an interview means to gain enough information for forming questions for the interview. It's kind of entire mining, data mining, you can say, information mining. For that, the following things should be taken into the account so that you can avoid the this amateur kind of things. So what is the main reason for the interview? This is the interviewer must know about this thing. What is the main reason for the interview? Are the goals and objectives relevant to the public who for whom you are making the interview? This I have already discussed. How are the established debates regarding that topic recently? In recent time, does those things happen in the society? Are they relevant? If you talk about the 10 years back, about the particular thing, about a particular war, particular an accident happened, and you're talking about that thing today. So that will not be relevant. Next, what are the main points of the subjects? This you should know. Are the findings and the research regarding the topic enough? Or you should do more research to prepare more questions. For example, if you have an interview of 1 hour and you have only 5 questions, then this is not sufficient. You should know, you need to prepare more questions because you have to extend your program up to 1 hour and you have very little much questions, you have little much content to ask. So questions asked for and we obtain. Okay. So you have to make this thing very much clear. You are asking facts to whom, when, where, what, how, which, why. Who asked for facts? We obtain persons, organizations, and name. Initially, we do this. Then about the time and the location. Right now, like we are in the studio, and today's timing is this much, and this is the midday show or the evening show, and then analysis and definition sequence of incident from starting from the 8 and then coming to the z point. How you are doing this? You are sequencing of incidents back to back, choosing among the opinions, a specific answer among the options. Why you are doing the reviews? Everything is happens just for the views and reasons for the action, motives and reasons behind the actions. Apart from those listed earlier, there can be other types of questions like questions to prove a point, questions to paint a picture of a place, questions to motivate and telling about particular incident or place or a person, following up questions. Okay. Questions not to be asked. This is a very much important thing. Many times it happens. The interviewer or the anchor asks the questions which could create different meaning in the entire thing. So double questions should not ask. An interviewer must not ask more than one question at the same time. If this is done, then the interview might omit some questions. This generally happens in the debates or televisions. So, for example, why could Nepal not perform well in international match? Are Nepali players ready for the World Cup? So these are the two different questions. If the interviewer is asking two questions back to back, then he might not get the entire answer of both the questions. So, in how many years will Nepali cricket team will bring the World Cup? Blah blah blah. Like wide question. Okay, your question should be very much short and crisp, so that your interviewee could get the idea what you want to know, and your audience also do not get confused. These types of questions generally do not does not specify anything. Wide questions. So they do are too general, and the information obtained from them are vague and confusing. Okay. For example, what is the situation of journalism in the world? How are you seeing the current affairs of Nepal? It's a very wide question. So generally in India, it's a meme, very much famous meme. अरे कहना क्या चाहते हो? पूछना क्या चाहते हो? This is very thing that comes to our mind. Leading questions. A question should not be imperative, and an interviewer should make sure that his questions is not telling the interview do something. For example, you are a successful actor in India. You just imagine. Okay, you think to do Nepali movie as well. Don't you think? Leading questions. This type of thing should not be asked. Closed question. These are two types of question: open-ended question and closed-ended question. Objective type question should be omitted because the motto of the interview is to engage your audience for some particular duration of time. Like for let's say if you have prepared 10 questions and you are asking MCQ questions, like, and then he or she is giving answer in 1 word or 2 word, then within 2 minutes your all the questions will get ended, and now next what? This situation will be like this. So try to avoid the closed-ended questions. A question should be done so that an interview, so that the view of the interviewee is also reflected in front of the audience. It should not be yes or no. For example, are you happy? He will she say, yeah, yes, I'm happy. How many times your mobile phone rang in a day, or how many mobile phones do you carry? I carry two. So these types of vague questions should not be asked, should be avoided. Irrelevant question. Questions should not go out of the topic or be done just for the sake of doing questions. For example, when are you going to play in next Nepali movie? Here nobody knows when the other person is going to do the next movie. Oh, loaded questions. Question should not be personal attack by interviewer. For example, an anti-Congress person asked the Congress leader, "Wasn't it because of you that situation in the Eastern Madhesh got worse? Do you blame yourself for that?" So it's like loaded question. It's like a war. It's like a gun loaded, and you are just firing to the interviewer. So these things should not be done in the interview. Meta question. An interviewer should not be rude, like Arnab Goswami. So interviewer should not be rude and ask questions in an unethical way. Generally, these things happen in the news channels of our country. So it should not be happen. For example, I sorry if I took Arnab Goswami name, Mr. Arnab Goswami. I'm sorry for that. For example, do you want to answer my question or not? This is also again a meta question. Just tell me one thing. Are you involved in Watergate scandal or not? So these type of meta questions should not be asked. Double-barreled question. A question must not be done to raise double meaning or double impression or put the interview in an unethical dilemma. For example, weren't you angry when your opposition leader changed the policy? So these things should not be asked. Points to remember while making questions. Uh, okay, what to ask? This is very important. You must know the questions that you're going to ask. About what you must ask. So these are points to remember: what are to ask, what not to ask. What to ask, that questions should be very much short and simple. Uh, It should be open, why and how. It should be creative question. Questions are pre-planned questions. Questions of mean. Questions to maintain self-confidence. Questions make a friendly environment. Questions that take a reasonable time to answer. What not to ask. Complex and long questions. Questions covering large area. Imperative questions. Unnecessary and irrelevant questions. Repetitive questions. Yes or no questions should be avoided. And what to inform interviewee before an interview. Many times it happens, people generally discuss all the questions what are going to ask, what he or she is going to ask, but many times it happens, the interviewer just gives it just the brief idea about the interview. What is the topic of the interview and the theme of the interview? This you must tell your interviewee. Is this interview will be live or broadcasted? You should tell about this thing about your interviewee. How long will it take? Is this interview a part of program or main event? What is the context of this interview? Who are the audiences of this interview? These are the questions that the interviewer must tell to the interviewee, because this will help the interview to make up his mind for giving the answers, for the duration, who are their audience, various things. This matters. Good listener, if we talk about the good listener, when we talk about the listening in terms of interview, we are talking about the interviewer. A good interviewer should be a good listener. If the interviewer stops paying attention to things at the interview, to the things an interviewee is saying, the interview might lose focus of the interview. A good interview, a good listening makes a way of for follow-up questions in terms of listening. Interviewer is classified into three types, like they are active listening, selective listening, and the passive listening. What is active listening? This is the most important, this is the most correct form of listening, active listening. Generally you should use this active listening thing. This helps to know what interview is saying, how he she is saying this, and in the context he she is speaking. Since the interviewer represents the audiences, he she should listen to whatever the interviewee is saying. Selective listening. This is the prejudiced form of listening. If an interviewee adapts selective listening, he she only pays attention to the things relevant to the interview. He will not take other things into the account what interviewee says. Apart from the topics that are planned beforehand, sometimes an interviewer might only pay attention to the things like he she likes and omits the other thing. Passive listening, this is the worst form of listening. These types of listeners do not pay attention to the subject matter and the context of the interview. An interviewer might not pay attention to anything at all or just pretend to pay attention. Okay, so do's and don'ts, what you should do and should not do as an interviewer. Know your role, being soft and respectful, be ethical, being a good listener, being familiar, follow up questions. Don't give your rude behavior, coward and shy, lying, losing focus, announcing opinions or the decisions, irrelevant questions. After the interview, checking if things said in an interview are suitable to the editorial rules, telling the time of the broadcast of the interview, during the time of parting with interviewee, official farewell should be given. After taking the interview of witness of in an incident, interviewer should try to cross-check the facts that the witness had said. Interview with the correspondent. While interviewing a correspondent of the organization, the interviewer should and the interviewer and the correspondent should talk beforehand. The interviewer should not ask any question that which might challenge the correspondent. The interviewer should believe in the information of the correspondent and should not cross-check the fact. The interview should not ask questions about which the correspondent does not know. It it must be discussed before the interview. The questions should be more informative rather than based opinion based. So thank you for watching this PowerPoint presentation. I hope you must have got with lot of new things about the interviews, this technique, about the questions, answers, do's, don'ts, and I hope you must have liked this video. Please like, subscribe, and share this video. I hope you will get the new things. And if you have any query, then write the query in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching.